He was a financial analyst. He looked at our house and called it a money pit. He took the cash, the BMW, and the investment portfolio. I took the worthless house. 3 years later I ran the math. Opening. The conference room. The conference room smells like recycled air and expensive coffee I haven't been offered. It's a Wednesday in March. Denver is doing that thing it does in early spring where the sun comes out sharp and cold at the same time, like it can't decide what season to be. Through the glass wall of the fourth-floor conference room, I can see the mountains sitting perfectly still on the horizon, white-capped, indifferent. I've been staring at them for the last 10 minutes instead of looking at my husband. My name is Rachel. I'm 39 years old. I teach art to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders at a middle school in Denver's Cole neighborhood, and I make $53,000 a year doing it, and I love it more than I can explain to people who don't understand why anyone would choose that. I've been crying intermittently since November. Today, the first Wednesday in March, 2 attorneys and 2 legal pads and a conference table between me and the man I married 11 years ago, I am done crying. Today I am thinking. Daniel is 41. He's a financial analyst at a mid-sized investment firm downtown. He manages portfolios for clients who trust him with the kind of money I will never see, and for most of our marriage, he managed ours too. He said he was better at it. He was right, in the narrow sense, the math sense, the spreadsheet sense, the index fund allocation by age sense. I believed him completely and surrendered the entire domain. That was the first mistake. Not the most expensive one, but the first. He is sitting across from me now with the particular stillness of a man who has already decided what he wants and has a plan for getting it. I know that stillness. I lived with it for 11 years. It used to feel like security. The list of assets sits in the center of the table. Our attorney, mine, a compact woman named Andrea who has clearly seen everything, and Daniel's attorney, a tall man named Preston who looks like he golfs, have both reviewed the document. It represents 11 years of marriage distilled into a column of numbers. I look at the list. Joint savings, $94,000. Built slowly over years of me packing lunches and him saying we should be more intentional about savings and both of us being right, in different ways. Investment portfolio, $112,000. Index funds, opened in 2019 when Daniel said the market timing was right, which I accepted without question. His 401k, $187,000. Predates the marriage by 3 years. Not on the table. My 403b, $41,000. The teacher's retirement account I funded consistently, the one thing in our finances I understood completely because it was mine. His car, a 2022 BMW 5 Series. $54,000 value, $31,000 remaining on the loan. He bought it 8 months before I found out. I thought about that timing for a while, then stopped. My car, 2018 Honda CR-V. $24,000, paid off. I chose it because the cargo space is good for hauling art supplies and it has never given me a moment of trouble. And then, the house. 3-bedroom bungalow in Denver's Globeville neighborhood. We bought it in 2016 for $287,000. Current Zillow estimate, $341,000. Outstanding mortgage, $201,000. Equity, approximately, $140,000. Daniel's notes in the margin of the document, in his careful financial analyst handwriting, illiquid asset, maintenance exposure, neighborhood risk. Daniel's opening position unfolds the way he presents things, organized, reasonable sounding, pre-decided. He wants the savings account, the investment portfolio, and the BMW. He'll carry the BMW loan. He'll give me the CR-V, my 403b, and the house. He says, the house is your home. I want you to be stable. He means it. That's the thing about Daniel. He means it. He has calculated that this is fair, probably even slightly generous to me, and in his mind the offer is compassionate. He called the Globeville house a money pit more than once. He genuinely believes he is doing me a favor leaving it to me. Andrea leans over and runs through the math in a quiet voice. His package, roughly $175,000 in liquid assets. Mine, roughly $165,000 in combined home equity and retirement savings. She says, it's fair, roughly. Close enough for both sides to agree. I look at the house line on the spreadsheet. Globeville neighborhood. $341,000 Zillow. I look at Daniel. I think about November. I think about the specific Tuesday evening that divided my life into before and after. I think about 11 years of deferring, of believing the spreadsheets, of not having spreadsheets of my own. I say, I'll take the house. Background, what the spreadsheet didn't know. I should explain what I know about Globeville that Daniel never learned, because this matters. Daniel's relationship to our neighborhood was analytic and distant. He looked at Zillow trends, he read think pieces about Denver real estate, he tracked median home prices in the area and compared them unfavorably to other zip codes. He said Globeville was transitional in the wrong direction. He said we should consider selling before it got worse. He saw a neighborhood on a data screen and made assessments. I live there. That's different. When you live somewhere, you accumulate a different kind of knowledge. Slower, less systematic, much harder to put in a column. You notice the Saturday morning when a coffee shop opens 4 blocks away and there's a line down the sidewalk on day 1 and you think, someone did their homework. You notice that your neighbor Teresa, 2 doors down, a 44-year-old kindergarten teacher who has lived in Globeville longer than almost anyone, turns down a cash offer for her house in the spring of 2022. $390,000, unsolicited, from a developer. She doesn't even counter. She calls me from her front porch to tell me about it and says, I just wanted you to know. I asked her why she turned it down. She said, because I know what's coming. Teresa knew what was coming because she'd been watching the same signs I had. The RTD light rail extension, approved in 2019, construction beginning in 2021, projected completion in approximately 14 months from the date I sat in that conference room, ran directly to a station 2 blocks from my front door. Urban economics research is clear on what transit access does to residential property values. Documented premiums of 10 to 18% in comparable Denver corridors, with the effects amplifying as completion approaches and then accelerating sharply in the 24 months post-opening. 3 industrial parcels within comfortable walking distance of my house had been rezoned mixed use since 2020. The rezoning had moved slowly through city approval processes the way these things do, unhurried, bureaucratic, invisible unless you're paying attention at the neighborhood association meetings I attended and Daniel did not. Mixed-use rezoning in a transit corridor is not ambiguous in its implications. It means density is coming, demand is coming, coffee shops and restaurants and young professionals who work downtown and want to live somewhere interesting and accessible are coming. A coffee shop opened on the corner in late 2022. This is not a trivial data point. Urban economists who study neighborhood transition have documented the coffee shop as a leading indicator for years, not because coffee shops themselves drive gentrification, but because they represent exactly the moment when a neighborhood crosses a risk threshold for investment. Someone did the demographic research, committed capital, bet on foot traffic that doesn't yet exist. When that bet is made successfully, it tends to attract other bets. I knew all of this because I lived there. I attended meetings. I walked to the coffee shop on its opening Saturday and waited in line for 22 minutes and thought, this is the line. Daniel knew our neighborhood from a Zillow estimate and his own aesthetic discomfort with a block that still had some industrial neighbors and hadn't yet smoothed its edges into the clean predictability he preferred. I said, I'll take the house. He said, that's generous of you. He thought he was giving me stability. He was giving me the asset. Update 1. The first year, unglamorous and necessary. The divorce finalizes in May. By June I am living alone in a house I shared for years, and the difference between those 2 states of existence is specific and relentless in ways that are hard to describe. You notice the space differently. The rooms feel different at certain hours. I rattle around in it for a while. I do not spend the first year feeling vindicated. I spend it surviving. Practical facts. My salary is $53,000. My monthly mortgage, taxes, and insurance total $1,740. This is manageable but not comfortable, not with the ordinary expenses of living. I pick up weekend tutoring in August. Middle schoolers who need math support, $400 a month, Saturday mornings. I don't resent it. I needed something to do with Saturday mornings that wasn't thinking about the end of my marriage, and sitting across a table from a 12-year-old who is genuinely trying to understand fractions is, it turns out, an effective antidote to self-pity. I repaint the bedroom in September. Not as any kind of symbolic act. I'm not that theatrical. But because I needed something physical to do and the old color was a gray-green we'd chosen together that now seems, in some intangible way, wrong. I painted a warm terracotta that looks better in the morning light. I spend a Saturday doing it badly and then fix the edges on Sunday. It feels good. I expand the backyard garden. I planted it in 2019, tomatoes and herbs initially, then dahlias in the cutting bed, then a climbing rose along the back fence that took 2 seasons to truly establish. This autumn I plant more. Grief turns out to be excellent for gardening. I am out there constantly, which means the garden has never looked better, which means autumn in that backyard is genuinely beautiful in a way it never quite managed before. Daniel, I hear through the mutual friends who can't quite stop reporting information I haven't requested, is doing fine. He signed a lease on an apartment in Cherry Creek before the divorce was final. $2,800 a month, nice building, exactly his taste. He is dating someone new by October. They go to Vail for a ski weekend and he posts about it. I see it once by accident. I put my phone face down and go outside and I weed the garden for an hour until my hands are dirty and my mind is quieter. I am not yet vindicated. I am just building the year, one Saturday morning at a time. Update 2. The light rail opens, month 14. The RTD extension opens on a Thursday in May, 14 months after I took the house across a conference table. I walked to the station on opening day. It takes 4 minutes at my ordinary pace, past Teresa's house, past the coffee shop where I've become a regular, around the corner to the new platform that still smells like concrete and fresh paint. I ride downtown that first Saturday morning. I get a coffee at a place I like near Union Station. I ride back. The whole trip costs $6.50 round trip and takes 44 minutes door to door. My commute to school from my own front door is now 19 minutes. I stand on my front porch that Saturday afternoon and think, 2 blocks. The week the light rail opens, 3 houses on my street list for sale. I watch the prices with the focused attention I am now applying to everything I should have been paying attention to for the last decade. First house, listed at $398,000. Offer accepted in 5 days. Second house, listed at $412,000. Bidding war. Final price, $431,000. Third house, listed at $389,000. Smaller lot, worse backyard. Sells in 3 days. I do not list my house. I watch. I think about the industrial parcels with their mixed-use rezoning approvals. I think about the developer who offered Teresa $390,000 for her house 2 years ago. I wonder what that number is now. I call Teresa that evening. We sit on her porch and drink iced tea and watch the street and don't say very much. At one point she says, "I knew." I say, "I know you knew." We drink our tea. It's a warm evening. The neighborhood sounds alive in a way it didn't 5 years ago. Different sounds, more of them. I drive home 2 doors down and make a note in a document I've started keeping on my laptop. I label the document Observations. Update 3. The neighborhood moves, months 18 through 24. Month 18. A restaurant opens in the mixed-use building 1 block over from the coffee shop. This is a real restaurant, a chef, a thoughtful menu, a 4-week waitlist by month 3. On Friday nights I can hear it from my backyard, not the noise of it exactly, but the presence of it, cars, voices, the particular energy of a place people are choosing to be. Month 20. A developer breaks ground on the 40-unit residential building on the large industrial parcel 2 streets over. Market rate units. Rooftop deck. I watch the construction from my backyard on Sunday mornings with my coffee. The steel goes up faster than I expected. Month 22. Teresa calls me. A developer has made another unsolicited offer on her house. $510,000 cash. I say, "Are you selling?" She says, "No. But I wanted you to know." I say, "Thank you. I mean several things by it." That evening I pull up the RTD rider data for the new station, available on their public dashboard. Monthly boardings have exceeded initial ridership projections by 23% through the first 5 months. I add this to my observations document. I'm not sure what I'm preparing for yet. I just keep observing. Month 24. I call an appraiser. I'm thinking about refinancing. The roof needs replacing and there's a bathroom situation I've been addressing with strategic towel placement and optimism for longer than I should have. I want to pull equity rather than drain savings. The appraiser spends 2 hours. She is methodical and thorough, pulling recent comps within a half-mile radius and adjusting for what she calls the transit proximity premium. Her terminology, not mine. She references 3 Denver corridor studies. She measures, photographs, notes the updated kitchen I did in year 1 with IKEA cabinets and patience. She leaves. 2 days later her report arrives by email. Appraised value, $487,000. I sit with that number for a while. I paid, effectively, in the divorce settlement, $201,000 for this house. That was the outstanding mortgage I assumed. The equity I received was approximately $140,000 that I haven't touched. In 24 months, my actual position in this asset has moved from $140,000 in equity to $286,000 in equity. I open a new document. I label it Math. I spend an evening running the comparison I've been half-running in my head for a year. Daniel's $94,000 in joint savings, sitting in a high-yield savings account at a rate I can reasonably estimate. Current value approximately $103,500. His $112,000 investment portfolio, The S&P 500 has been volatile over the 24 months since our divorce, roughly flat with dividends reinvested. Approximately $114,000. His BMW, worth approximately $38,000 now, with a remaining loan of $24,000. Net equity, $14,000. Total current value of Daniel's divorce package, approximately $231,500. My house equity alone, $286,000. That number doesn't include my 403b, now at approximately $48,000 with continued contributions and market movements. It doesn't include my paid-off CRV. It doesn't include the tutoring savings I've built up, or the fact that I now have a household budget I manage myself, with spreadsheets, with attention, with the hard-earned fluency of someone who spent a year figuring out where the money was going and made adjustments. I close the math document. I don't send it to anyone. I don't post about it. I put it in a folder and go to bed. The next morning, I call my appraiser back and ask about the refinance process. Update 4. The text, month 26. I haven't spoken to Daniel since the divorce finalized. We have no children, no shared property, no threads left. The silence has been, on balance, good for me. I've stopped thinking about him in the specific way that divorce grief requires. Not in the morning, not when the weather changes, not when I find a book on the shelf I forgot we bought together. I've stopped. It took a while. It happened. He texts me on a Sunday evening in the 26th month. Denver is not a large city in the way that actual large cities are large. Mutual friends exist. We have a few people who manage to maintain relationships with both of us without being partisan about it, which I respect. Somehow, through the specific channels by which information travels in a city of 700,000 people, the appraisal had become known. I didn't tell anyone. But Teresa knows, and Teresa talks to people, and people talk. The text reads, "Heard the Globeville house appraised well. Good for you." I look at it for a long time. I type, "It's been a good investment." Delete it. 2 pointed. I type, "Yeah, the transit corridor did what I thought it would." Delete it. 2 explicitly a reply to something he didn't ask. I type, "Thanks." Look at it. That's it. That's the whole thing. I send it. Put my phone in the kitchen drawer. Go outside to the backyard. It's a Sunday evening in September, warm still, the late summer light doing the thing it does in Colorado where everything looks golden for about 20 minutes before the sun drops behind the mountains. The climbing rose along the back fence has gone past its season, but the dahlias are still going. Big pom-pom heads in deep red and orange and a pale lavender that surprised me when it came up, nothing like the photo on the seed packet, better. The restaurant down the block is getting busy for the dinner hour. The light rail runs in the distance, inaudible but present in the way something becomes present once you know it's there. I sit in the garden until the light changes. Then I go inside, and I don't think about the text again, and I sleep better than I have in months. Update 5. The next move, month 28. The refinance closes. New appraisal holds at $481,000. Minor adjustment from the first, consistent with the market. I pull $75,000 in cash-out equity. The math is conservative. I keep my loan-to-value ratio comfortable, my monthly payment increases modestly, I am not over-leveraged. I've read 3 books on real estate finance in the past year. I have spreadsheets for the spreadsheets now. $18,000 goes to the roof and the bathroom. The bathroom, no longer requiring strategic towel placement, is deeply satisfying. The roof will last another 25 years. These are not emotional purchases. They are maintenance and preservation of the asset, which is also my home, which is both things at once. That leaves $57,000. I call a real estate attorney. I also call an agent, a woman named Danny who specializes in Denver investment properties and who, when I explain what I'm looking for, gets very quiet in a way that suggests she's taking me seriously. I'm looking for a small duplex in a neighboring Denver zip code. Specifically, light rail extension announced but not yet built. Industrial rezoning approved but not yet developed. A coffee shop recently opened. The pattern I've learned to read. Danny finds 3 candidates. I look at all 3, in person, walking the blocks around each one the way I learned to do in Globeville, not analyzing from a spreadsheet, but moving through the space, watching what's there, watching what's about to be there. The second one is right. I know it the way I knew the Globeville house, standing on the front porch in 2016 and looking down the street toward where the light rail would eventually be, even though I didn't know that consciously then. Sometimes knowing isn't verbal. It's spatial. It's the particular way a neighborhood holds its breath before it changes. I offer $298,000. It's accepted. I put the $57,000 down. Conventional investment loan for the rest. The duplex has 2 units, a 2-bedroom upstairs and a 1-bedroom ground floor. I rent both within 3 weeks of closing. $1,050 and $975 per month. After mortgage, taxes, insurance, and a conservative maintenance reserve, $680 per month in positive cash flow. I am 42 years old. I make $53,000 a year teaching art to middle schoolers, which I love more than I can explain to people who want to talk about it in terms of salary. I own 2 properties in Denver with combined equity approaching $400,000 and rising. I have $680 per month in passive income that didn't exist 3 years ago. I have spreadsheets. Resolution. The 3rd anniversary. It's a Wednesday in March again. I noticed this while I'm making coffee. Same month, same day of the week, 3 years exactly from the conference room and the asset list and the man across the table who thought he was doing me a favor. The mountains are visible again through the kitchen window. White-capped, indifferent, consistent. I take my coffee to the kitchen table and open my laptop. I update the math document. I look at the total for a while. The house, appraised at $481,000, mortgage balance of approximately $183,000 after 3 years of payments. Equity, $298,000. The duplex, purchased at $298,000, conservative estimate of 8% appreciation over 14 months, current value approximately $322,000, mortgage balance $247,000. Equity, $75,000. Combined real estate equity, $373,000. 403b, $52,000, with ongoing contributions and employer match. Monthly passive income, $680. Net worth, a number that would have seemed impossible to me sitting in that conference room in a different March, crying intermittently, believing I was the one who didn't understand money. I close the laptop. I take my coffee to the backyard. Late March in Denver is still uncertain. Hard frost possible, but the light is changing, the angle of it different, promising. I planted dahlias again last fall, expanding the cutting bed along the south fence. I'm not sure all of them will come up. Some years they don't. The variables are too many: depth, drainage, whether the winter was cold enough or too cold. You plant them and then you wait and you don't know until you know. My phone lights up with a notification. The RTD, Denver's Transit Authority, has released a study announcement for a potential second light rail extension. The proposed corridor runs through the zip code where I bought the duplex 14 months ago. I look at the notification for a moment. Then I screenshot it. Open the math document. Add a note. Then I put the phone down on the garden table and drink my coffee and watch the beds where the dahlias may or may not be coming. The truth I've spent 3 years arriving at is this: Daniel was not a villain. He was genuinely competent at finance in all the ways that didn't require paying attention. He could run a regression analysis on historical index fund returns. He could optimize our tax-advantaged accounts. He understood portfolio allocation and rebalancing and the long-term mathematics of compound interest. What he couldn't do was stand on a front porch and know a place. What he couldn't do was sit in a neighborhood association meeting and understand what the rezoning maps meant for the people who lived there. What he couldn't do was register a coffee shop line on a Saturday morning as a data point, or hear Teresa say "I know what's coming" and understand that she meant it literally. He looked at Globeville from a spreadsheet. I looked at it from the front porch. There's a difference. It turns out to be worth, as best I can calculate, somewhere in the neighborhood of $140,000 in comparative equity, and that number is still moving. He said, "I want you to be stable." He handed me the house he didn't want. He meant it as consolation. He was, without intending to be, the best financial teacher I ever had. Not because of what he showed me, but because of what he missed. Because of what I knew that didn't fit in his columns. Because of what happened when I stopped deferring and started having spreadsheets of my own. I have 2 properties in Denver. I have passive income. I have a 403b growing steadily, the way it was always going to grow if I just kept contributing, which I have. I have a garden with dahlias that may or may not come up. I have a folder on my laptop labeled math and a text exchange that ends with me saying thanks and nothing else. I have everything I need. Some of it he gave me by accident. Most of it I grew myself. That's how gardens work too. You put something in the ground. You wait. You don't know what's coming until the light changes and you look down one morning and see the first green pushing through, insisting, arriving precisely on its own schedule. The dahlias will come up or they won't. I'm not worried. I've learned to read the signs.